Good afternoon. Today I'm here to introduce to you our guest speaker. Marge Steinhage Fenelon is a best-selling and award-winning author, an internationally known speaker. She's been on EWTN, and she hosts her own podcast, Simply Holy. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Marge Steinhage Fenelon.
Good afternoon. Look at all these beautiful faces. Thank you so much for being here, not for me or because of me, but for her and because of her. So I know you're here because of your love for the Blessed Mother, and that is thrilling for me. So I thank you. And I hope that you find this presentation informative and entertaining, but truly inspiring. We're going to learn a lot, but I hope that we're going to have our hearts uplifted by the time we're finished today. So, the name of my presentation is Transforming Hearts, the Message and Meaning of Mary's Places of Grace. What do we mean by that? What is Mary's Places of Grace? What are we talking about? Notice I didn't specifically say shrines, places of grace. And I'll explain that a little bit more later in my presentation. In 1983, Pope St. Paul VI convened a meeting of the rectors of Marian shrines from throughout the world. And the purpose was to define the concept of Marian shrines. So what are these things that we call Marian shrines? So here is some of what came from that meeting. They lift their voices and let their existence be known in the church. These are Marian shrines. They're spiritual clinics, testimonies of miraculous deeds, and of a continual wave of devotion. I mean, think of this beautiful place. Does this not fit? There are luminous stars in the church's sky. That's my favorite. Centers of devotion, prayer, recollection, spiritual refreshment, and centers of religious intensity. These are important places that we're talking about. All of these rectors coming together to define what they're doing and why it's important. We also find Marian shrines, Marian places of grace, in the Code of Canon Law. So canons 1230 to 1234. I won't read the whole section to you, but here are the most important parts. Sacred places of pilgrimage, animated centers of intense Christian life. They foster liturgical and sacramental practice and cultivate sound devotion. These are important things that happen at these Marian places of grace. In his encyclical, Pope John Paul II, saint now, in Mother of the Redeemer, the date is 1987 if you want to look it up, he said that there's a geography of faith in regard to Marian shrines. What an interesting concept. He said, they are to be a genuine image of the nature of the church and of the Eucharist. And in this Eucharistic year, that's very vital, is it not? They are to reveal the fullness of the Paschal mystery. They are to be in communion with the universal church and the presence of Mary in word and symbol. These are our Marian places of grace. And Pope St. John Paul II gave some directives also for all Marian places of grace, all Marian shrines. They must cultivate a sense of God's beauty revealed in Mary. They must provide an atmosphere for discerning and responding to vocation as a gift of God. They must be a sign of the mysterious relationship between God's call and the person's response. They must be associated with or to sponsor works of charity. Works of charity. They must foster ecumenical prayer encounters and dialogues, and finally, they must be a particular expression of devotion to Mary. All of the places of grace, if you think about this, they have a name attached to the Blessed Mother. Now, some shrines, some places of grace have some similar names, but they're always unique. Every single one is unique. Let me give you some statistics that might surprise you. Surprised me. 80% of all shrines are devoted to Mary. That's all shrines, any kind of shrine, 80% are devoted to Mary. Let me give you some numbers. So, the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico, 10 million visitors per year. How many of you have been there? You are very blessed. I have not. It's on my bucket list. 6 million visitors to Lourdes, France every year. 5 million to visit Our Lady of Czestochowa in Poland. 4 million visit Aparecida, Brazil, for Our Lady of Aparecida. 200,000 and growing visit the Shrine of Our Lady of Champion in my home state of Wisconsin. 200,000. And here we have 21,000 and growing. 21,000 visitors come here to this shrine, this beautiful place of grace, every year, and growing. What are they doing? They're coming on pilgrimage. Even if you stop in, even if you live very close by and you just stop in, when you stop in, that's a pilgrimage of sorts. Pilgrimage, this whole idea of pilgrimage, it's in our DNA as Catholics. It's woven into our tradition. So I'd like to look at that. What is really a pilgrimage? Especially from the aspect of the history of our faith and the history of pilgrimage in general. So it's a holy journey to a sacred destination. It is a time of searching. Generally, people don't go on pilgrimage because they don't have anything else to do. You know, it's not something they do just for the fun of it. Generally, they're searching. There's a need there. The purpose often is to atone for sins or to have a particular spiritual experience or to implore, as so many do, a particular grace or a petition granted or a miracle. How many of you have gone to a Marian place of grace looking for a miracle? Have you received it? Some not. Yeah, I'm seeing, but maybe not yet. But likely in a way that you have no idea, because prayers never go unanswered. Okay, so another reason people go is to gain strength. Maybe we go to visit a special place of grace of our Blessed Mother, and we don't really have any particular intention, but we're feeling that need. I just need to go visit my mama. That's pilgrimage. That's what calls us to make these journeys. Now, I'd like to go into the history of pilgrimage in terms of civilization, because the idea of pilgrimage is as old as civilization itself. Can you imagine that? People way back in, well, maybe not the Stone Age, but early civilization. People already were going on pilgrimage. In the ancient Near East, a portion of the harvest was carried to the shrines and offered to the gods in gratitude and homage. They're not even Catholic. They're going on pilgrimage. Muslim law says that Muslims must pilgrimage to Mecca once in their lifetime, at least once. Hindus are obliged to pilgrimage to the holy city of Varanasi and bathe in the sacred waters of the Ganges River. Civilizations, ancient civilizations. Here in our faith, our Christian faith, pilgrimage goes back as far as Adam and Eve. When they were exiled from the Garden of Eden, that was a pilgrimage. They were sent on pilgrimage from the Garden of Eden after the fall. Cain was sent further into exile after he killed Abel. Again, pilgrimage, searching, looking for that grace to draw closer to God again. Abraham's journey in Exodus, that's one huge pilgrimage. How many books of the Bible contain the stories of the Israelites traveling from Egypt through the wilderness and to the promised land? It's pilgrimage. Because of that, Jerusalem became then a center of pilgrimage because of the temple. The temple was a special place of encounter with God. And so it began that all male Jews every year needed to travel 3 times to Jerusalem, to the temple. One was the Feast of Passover, which we'll be hearing about very soon as we near the end of Lent. Then the Festival of Weeks and the Festival of Booths. This is an important part of their faith. In the New Testament, we see more pilgrimage. It picks up on the Old Testament motif, but this time the focus is different. In the New Testament, the focus is redemption. Jesus was a pilgrim in the New Testament. From the time of his birth to the crucifixion, he was on pilgrimage, traveling homeward to the Father. He came here as a pilgrim. So when we go on pilgrimage, we are joining our Lord in something that he did that was extremely important. In early Christianity, pilgrimage became such an important part of the faith that it was used as a metaphor for life itself. My life is a pilgrimage. Even people who are not religious use that same term. I'm on pilgrimage. My life, that's my life. I'm pilgrimaging. They would travel long distances to the Holy Land. And what are they looking for? They would go to venerate the places that had been sanctified by Jesus, by our Blessed Mother, by St. Joseph, by the apostles. They wanted to see these places. They wanted to experience them. So they go on pilgrimage. By the time of the 4th century, Emperor Constantine converted himself to Christianity and then legalized Christianity. And not long after that, his mother, St. Helena, discovered the true cross and the Holy Sepulchre. Because of that discovery, we suddenly have an escalation of pilgrimages. Everybody wants to go on pilgrimage. Everybody wants to travel to the Holy Land. Everybody wants to go to Rome, to Greece and Egypt, to travel in the footsteps of the apostles. It's a huge influx of pilgrimaging. By the time of the Middle Ages, going on pilgrimage was a significant part of Christian devotion. I mean, you just did it. It's like we make the sign of the cross. It was just so entwined in their faith. By the 11th century, we see indulgences attached to pilgrimages. This brought about new developments where we see churches and cathedrals having relics for veneration. Here we are, relics for veneration. So Holy Family, the apostles, the saints, they come to venerate these relics, and we see throngs of pilgrims from all walks of life. There's the common folk and the parish priests, popes, emperors. They're all going on pilgrimage. They want to venerate these relics. They want to pay worship to God and veneration to the saints, veneration to our dear Blessed Mother. But why a specifically Marian pilgrimage? Why do we do that? Why not just keep pilgrimaging to the places of Christ? Well, first and foremost is veneration of Mary. To venerate her, she who is the mother of God and our mother. So the Catechism, it tells us what the Catholic faith believes about Mary is based on what it believes about Christ. And what it teaches about Mary illumines in turn its faith in Christ. You can't separate our Lord and his mother. It's impossible. The two are bound together, not in the same respect as the Trinity. I want to be very clear about that. But you cannot have Jesus without his mother or his mother without Jesus. The only reason Mary was ever born was for Jesus. When he was dying on the cross, Jesus said, "Behold your mother." He couldn't say something by accident. And everything that he spoke when he was on earth had deep meaning. Behold your mother. This is why we go on Marian pilgrimage. To venerate our Blessed Mother, to experience those Marian places of grace. You see, when the Blessed Mother issued her fiat, when she spoke her fiat, yes to being the mother of Christ, she also said yes to being our mother. How is that? Because Christ is the head. We are the body. We are the body of Christ. And that can't be separated either. You can't separate the head from the body, only in horror movies. Okay? It goes together. So she's our mother, just as she is Christ's mother. She did not physically give birth to us, but she gave birth to us spiritually. And that motherhood wasn't a one and done. Here's what St. Pope Paul VI said. We believe that the Holy Mother of God, the new Eve, Mother of the Church, continues in heaven to exercise her maternal role on behalf of the members of Christ. She just keeps taking care of us. She never gets let off duty. For all of us moms who have gone, oh my gosh, when are those kids ever going to go to bed? Can you just imagine the Blessed Mother? Like, oh, when is the whole world going to go to bed and give me a peace? I mean, this is how dedicated she is to us. She would never do that. She's not like us where we get worn down. That maternal role is forever and ever and ever, and she waits in her places of grace for her children to come and visit with her. The Catechism explains this very beautifully. It says this motherhood of Mary in the order of grace, that's what I meant when I said she spiritually became our mother. In the order of grace continues uninterruptedly from the consent which she loyally gave at the Annunciation and which she sustained without wavering beneath the cross. It continues. Why? Because she wants our eternal salvation. She is charged with that responsibility to help us get to heaven. Because of this, we know her under the titles advocate, helper, benefactress, and mediatrix. They may not be official titles, but these are the roles, the responsibilities of our Blessed Mother. How good and gracious she is. And because of that role, those roles, she is allowed to distribute graces in abundance. She's allowed to effectively intercede for us. And she is allowed to dwell in her places of grace. When you go to one of Mary's places of grace, when you come here, you're not coming because of a picture or a statue. You're coming because she is here. She's here and she's inviting you, and she can't wait for you to show up and come and spend time with her. Pour your heart out to her. Talk with her about all the things that make you excited, make you joyful, make you sad. She is your mother. She wants to hear every single thing that is on your heart. And she waits here for you to come. I'm going to share with you now some of my experiences when I went on Marian pilgrimage. So these are chronicled in my book, My Queen, My Mother, A Pilgrimage Across America. And the idea for this pilgrimage and then book started with the presidential elections of 2016. Now, I'm not going to get political, but you know that was a rough time in our country. I saw political and ideological divisions. I saw increasing godlessness. I saw so much hostility, and it really started stirring in my heart. And so I decided to do my part. What could I do to foster unity again, to rekindle in people love for our country, to rediscover our rich Catholic heritage? You know this from the history of this shrine. We have a rich, rich Catholic heritage here in the United States. I wanted to then, of course, encourage love for Mary, a deepening love for Mary and her places of grace. So I visited 9 Marian places of grace, 9 Marian pilgrimage places. I went coast to coast, east to west, north to south. I chose them all for their historical significance and for their particular Marian attachment. So it took me about 3 years to make all these trips. I didn't travel straight through to all 9. Of course, I had some breaks because I have a family and needed to be home for family at times. But I traveled to each one of these. And I can tell you that for as much as I thought I knew before I set out on pilgrimage, I was completely astounded because there are so many. I was like a kid in a candy store. It was so difficult to choose just 9 places. But this is what we wanted to do, what the publisher and I wanted to do, is because we formed it into a novena. So novena is 9. So I had to whittle it down to just 9. Maybe someday I'll do another round. I would love to. There's so many places and so many kinds of places. And each is unique with a special mission and a special Marian character. I'd like to share with you some examples to give you a taste of what I'm talking about here. So the first example is the National Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans, Louisiana. So succor meaning speedy help, quick help. Some people say Our Lady of Quick Help. In 1727, the French Ursuline nuns came to America and they established a school for girls, which is still the oldest currently running school for girls in the United States. And I visited there, and I saw all these beautiful young ladies and the nuns teaching them and working with them. In 1803, a crisis befell the Ursuline community, and there's many little details that really aren't that important right now for this presentation. But they were threatened, their livelihood, their existence was threatened, and so they prayed to Our Lady of Prompt Succor for a miracle. They needed a miracle to save their mission, to save their community, and that miracle was granted through Our Lady's intercession. So in 1810, the Mother Superior commissioned a statue of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, which a devotion they had brought from France, but this was a new statue, and they established the shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans. But my favorite part, my friends, is not even so much the statue, the Ursulines, but really what got me excited about this place was the War of 1812. So, the bloody Battle of New Orleans. The Blessed Mother was completely involved in that battle, and I will tell you how. So, in the Battle of New Orleans, we had the British forces coming ashore to to capture our country. There were 10,000 of them. They were well-equipped, they were well-trained. These were fearsome, fearsome opponents. General Andrew Jackson had really, relatively speaking, only a handful of men fighting on his side. It was a misfit band. They were militia fighters, but they were frontiersmen, farmers, slaves, Native Americans, pirates. That's all he had. They hid behind bales of hay when the British forces approached. That's all they had. And whatever their muskets or any other kinds of primitive weapons they had. So they're vastly outnumbered. They're severely under-equipped. And General Jackson, for better or worse, made a threat. He said, okay, rather than let the British take over New Orleans, I will burn it to the ground. The whole city. They're not going to get this city. Well, the women and children, the men are all off helping General Jackson. The women and children fled to the Ursuline convent, the shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, and they spent the night in prayer there, praying before the statue. In the morning, the Vicar General said Mass for everyone there, and in the middle of Mass, a messenger burst in, disrupted Mass, to announce that the American forces had won. And the battle had lasted only 20 minutes. Now, General Jackson knew that the Ursulines had been praying for a victory. He was not a believer. He did not believe in God whatsoever. But he knew they were praying. He knew he had won in just 20 minutes. And so after the battle, he and his men went to the convent to personally thank the Ursulines for their prayers. They had a celebration dinner. Now you have to realize the Ursuline community, I understand that they have that school, but they are a cloistered community. So this was very unusual to gather with outsiders, so to speak. But they had this celebration dinner. And then a few days later, General Jackson wrote a letter to the Bishop of New Orleans, meant eventually for the Ursulines. Because it was a cloistered community, the protocol was that he did not write them directly. So he wrote the bishop, knowing that that letter would be passed on to the Ursuline community. And this is a quote from that letter. It's a little contrived because it's that early American syntax, but I think you'll get the point. He wrote, the signal interposition of heaven in giving success to our arms against the enemy who so lately landed on our shores, while it must excite in every bosom attached to the happy government under which we live emotions of the liveliest gratitude, requires at the same time some external manifestation of those feelings. A divine interposition. As a non-believer, he knew, he got it, he saw. It had to be the Blessed Mother. The Blessed Mother won that battle of New Orleans. The message and meaning of this entire place of grace. What I took away from this is that our Blessed Mother is absolutely not only interested in, but involved in our U.S. history. I think many of us tend to think history happens over here, that's for all the politicians and stuff, that's that, and then we've got the church and we've got our Blessed Mother over here. This is not true. They are all together. And the Blessed Mother wants this country becomes a godly country dedicated to God. So, next stop, National Shrine of Our Lady of the Martyrs in Voorheesville, New York. Has anyone been there? Okay, maybe I'm going to spark. Oh, yes, very nice. We got one, but wonderful. Isn't it amazing? It's amazing. All right. Founded in 1884 by Jesuit Father Joseph Loisance. It originated on 10 acres. It grew to 600 acres. It's built on the site of the Mohawk village of Ossernenon. This is along the Mohawk River. If you can kind of try to picture the early American, there was really no buildings, there was nothing, okay? But this place, Ossernenon, was the place of the martyrdom in the 1640s of St. Isaac Jogues, St. René Goupil, and St. John Lalande. They were martyred there. It's also the birthplace of St. Kateri Tekakwitha. Now, at about this time, the Mohawks captured about 22 missionaries, loaded them into boats, and took them along the Mohawk River toward Ossernenon, but every little while they would stop at another Mohawk village. The prisoners were made to get out of the boats, go onto the shore, and they were made to run the gauntlet. Over a period of 2 weeks, this happened again and again. They had to run the gauntlet. They were stripped naked. They were clubbed. They had their fingers gnawed off. St. Isaac Jogues lost a number of his fingers and had to get special permission to say Mass because his canonical fingers had been gnawed off. There's not a nicer way to say it. They had their wounds reopened. They had their flesh burned with hot coals and lighted torches. It was awful. Again and again and again over 2 weeks until they finally reached their destination. When they got to Ossernenon, St. Isaac Jogues, St. René Goupil were kept prisoner there. It's not clear what happened with John Lalande. One day, as they were made slaves, and one day, St. René Goupil it's unclear, he was either teaching a Mohawk child to make the sign of the cross or he was making the sign of the cross over the child. The child's grandfather saw this, got furious because he thought that Goupil was practicing black magic over his grandchild. And so a few days later, a Mohawk brave ambushed René Goupil and split his skull open with a tomahawk. His body was dumped in the ravine by the Mohawks. St. Isaac Jogues later, in the dark, found the body, secured it in a place where he could go back sometime and bury it in the daylight, but then when he went back, it had disappeared again because there were spring floods. It was never found. What is interesting about this is that means that ravine is a reliquary. We have the reliquaries here with the relics of the saints. That entire ravine is a reliquary. And as I visited it, the words of Tertullian came back to me. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. There, in that ravine, was the seed of our Catholic faith here in the United States. At the moment I realized that, I burst into tears. I sobbed and sobbed, and I lost track of time. I think it might have been an entire hour. I walked around that ravine simply just sobbing at the realization of what it cost them so that I can go to my parish church anytime I want now. And our Blessed Mother was there with them because they prayed the rosary together every day. They didn't have rosaries, they had their 10 fingers. They never gave up on the Blessed Mother. The Blessed Mother never gave up on them. So, what is the message and meaning of that place of grace? For me, it is just that. If we don't give up on the Blessed Mother, she won't give up on us. And you know what? Even if we do give up on her, she's still not going to give up on us. What mother ever gives up on her children, even though they turn their backs on her? Never. And should we ever be called to that moment of heroism, she will see us through. She will be there. She is the Queen of Martyrs. Next, the National Shrine of Our Lady of Champion in Champion, Wisconsin. In 1859, the Blessed Mother appeared to a Belgian immigrant woman named Adele Brees, 24 years old. She appeared twice to Adele, and she gave some very specific instructions. And the nuts and bolts of the apparition itself is less important than her message to Adele. And this is what she said. I am the Queen of Heaven who prays for the conversion of sinners, and I wish you to do the same. You received Holy Communion this morning, and that is well, but you must do more. Make a general confession and offer communion for the conversion of sinners. If they do not convert and do penance, my son will be obliged to punish them. A recurring theme, if you notice, through many, many apparitions. Then she told her this: gather the children in this wild country and teach them what they should know for salvation. Teach them their catechism, how to sign themselves with the sign of the cross, and how to approach the sacraments. That is what I wish you to do. Go and fear nothing. I will help you. Now, the most remarkable thing about this is that Adele didn't have anything more than a meager, and I mean meager, 6 years of schooling. She didn't even complete 6th grade. She couldn't read or write. She was smart in her own way, but she was not educated. So here is our Blessed Mother telling Adele, you need to go educate these children. And Adele basically said, how? I don't know enough. But the Blessed Mother says, don't worry about that. No need, don't worry. I will help you. I will tell you what to say. So Adele took this mission seriously. Her father, right after the apparition, built a chapel on the site of the apparitions, and Adele set out and walked a 50-mile radius, on foot walked a 50-mile radius, going from house to house to house, begging the parents to allow her to teach their children their catechism. Now, why did she have to beg them? Because this was logging country. It was farm country. These were the wild, wild woods of Wisconsin. And these families needed, it was all hands on deck. They needed every single set of hands and feet that they could to help support the family. So that meant if a child or children are off learning catechism, those are workers they don't have to survive. So what would Adele do? She would say, I will do whatever you need. I will pitch manure. I will do the cooking and the cleaning. Whatever you need me to do, I will do it. Just let me teach your children. And eventually, it got to the point where there were so many to tend to that she opened a boarding school and then eventually an orphanage. And the building is still on the site. Okay. But what is the message and meaning for us? So that's very nice. Mary appeared to a 24-year-old Belgian girl. But remember what she said. She said, teach the children in this wild country. Do we not still have a wild country? At that time, the Belgian people were in grave danger of losing their faith completely. There were hardly any priests. There were far and few between. Many interesting spiritualities came with these people across the ocean and got mixed with Catholicism. So what Catholicism they were practicing may not even have been genuine Catholicism. It could have fizzled. The Catholic faith could have fizzled there. But Adele is given that mission to go out and teach these children to secure the faith. Right now, do we not have children in danger of losing their faith or never learning it at all? Do we not have adults in danger of losing their faith? This is wild country. We are called, like Adele Brees, to go and teach the children what they need to know for salvation. Those words at every single site Whether it's Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, Lourdes, Champion, whatever the Blessed Mother says at that time to that person is meant for all of us for all time. It may have been put within the context of that particular time period and situation. But why do we have these recorded? Why has God seen to it that these messages are passed out for us? Because these are our directives as well, you and I. That includes the mission of the Miraculous Medal. All right. Now, what about this beautiful place? This place here, how many know the history fairly well? Okay, all right, I don't want to be redundant and everybody's like, oh, we know this, Marge. All right, so just as a refresher, and if you've never heard this before, very, very briefly, in 1818, the Vincentian Father Joseph Rosati and a small group of Vincentians were asked to come here by the people of Perryville to minister to them. They needed priests, they needed sacraments. In exchange, the people of Perryville offered land, funding, and labor so that the Vincentians could build a seminary, and they had a small log church, a sacristy, they had community space and classrooms, so they could grow their community, but then also serve the people here of Perryville and the surrounding areas. A larger church was consecrated in 1837, and if you have walked the grounds, you would have noticed, it's on the Rosary Walk, Rosati's cabin. Built in 1820, that was Father Rosati's residence, then sacristy. Father Rosati then became the first bishop of the newly formed Diocese of St. Louis. All of this beautiful history here. You know, the Archbishop was talking about how gracious the people of Perryville have been for generations, going back. So this is the fruit of that. This is what we're talking about, people opening their hearts to Mary's places of grace. The Barrens is on the National Registry of Historic Places. In 1929, the shrine, as it is now, was formed. And if you have not visited the votive light room, please do so. I'd read about it, I'd seen film clips of it, but to walk in there and realize 300,000 or more votive candles, each representing an intention that was sent to the Vincentians and that they pray for daily. Amazing. Also in there is the original baptistry of St. Mary of the Barrens Church, which was the original church here. Walk the grounds. Take advantage of these places. There are courtyards and statues and the Rosary Walk and the Rosary Plaza, the Miraculous Medals Moments area. There's the grotto. Don't miss the grotto. The seminarians built that grotto to our Blessed Mother between 1917 and 1920. And it's on the site of the stone quarry that was used to build the church. All of this history is here. Why? Because of our Blessed Mother. Because she is so special. Because her mission of the Miraculous Medal is so special. So many miracles from that medal. She's waiting here, not only for you. You know, you're already here. Who can you think of that would benefit from being here, that would benefit from a visit here? We need to be doing this, and that's not to lay a guilt trip on you. But we have more than 100 years of grace-filled history and heritage here at this shrine. And what is the message and meaning of this place? I think I will let you decide. I won't interject my own. You decide. Walk the grounds. Talk to the people. You find out what is the message and meaning. So in conclusion, there are so many astonishing places of grace dedicated to the Blessed Mother in our country. They're everywhere. They're on the road as you travel. They're in your own town, in here, obviously, but other towns. Right there, practically right in your own backyard. Just look around you. There are places dedicated to our Blessed Mother all over the place. You know, I could have, when I was forming that book, I could have traveled, and I still could, for years, nonstop, and not see them all. That is how many. And at each place, our Blessed Mother has chosen a special title and a special mission for herself there. Each is an opportunity for grace and miracles. It's an opportunity to learn more about our Blessed Mother, to fall more deeply in love with her, and to demonstrate our love for her. Each is filled with history, but too many are little known. Without devotion, they will die spiritually, and without support, they will disappear. And I saw that on my travels. Let's reconquer our country for the Blessed Mother. Let's keep alive these places of grace. This needs to be our mission, to secure these places of grace for future generations. So I encourage you to visit our Blessed Mother's places of grace as often as you can and let her speak to your heart. You can go with your petitions, you can go with pilgrimage in mind, but don't forget to simply sit and offer yourself to the Blessed Mother and ask her, why did you bring me here? And what do you want me to take away? Thank you.